Cheers. Rishi Sunak is embroiled in a row with the actor David Tennant after the former said this while accepting an award for being an ally of the LGBTQIA+ community at the British LGBT Awards last week.
I suppose if I'm honest, I'm a little depressed by the fact that acknowledging that everyone has the right to be who they want to be and live their life how they want to live it, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, should merit any kind of special award or special mention, because it's common sense, isn't it? It is human decency. We shouldn't live in a world where that is worth remarking on. However, until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore, I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
Kemi Badenoch shouldn't exist, or at least should shut up, when it comes to her views on trans rights, said David Tennant. Badenoch is a real touchpoint for some, given her views that biological sex is immutable, and the recently publicised change in the Equalities Act to clarify that the definition of sex is biological and not legal. More on that later. Badenoch responded to Tennant by saying this: "I will not shut up. I will not be silenced by men who prioritise applause from Stonewall over the safety of women and girls. A rich, lefty, white male celebrity so blinded by ideology he cannot see the optics of attacking the only black woman in government by calling publicly for my existence to end." Rishi Sunak this afternoon has said that freedom of speech was the most powerful feature of our democracy, adding, "If you're calling for women to shut up and wishing they didn't exist, you are the problem." I think in bringing in her race, Badenoch is doing something she herself has accused others of, the so-called playing the race card. I don't think there is anything in what David Tennant says that is aimed at her because she is black. There are black women who hold different views to Badenoch on the issue of sex and gender. But it is, I think, a deliberate misunderstanding to view those who state that biological reality, that there is not a single human being in history who has ever changed their biological sex, can never be an ally of LGBT people. Why is that the assumption? When David Tennant says it is common sense to believe that everyone has the right to be who they want to be and live their life how they want to live it as long as they're not hurting anyone, why does he assume that people who hold views like Kemi Badenoch's don't also believe that? You can be who you want to be. What you can't do is deny reality. So what's going on here? Is Tennant the problem by telling a woman, and possibly a lot of other women who hold the same views as Badenoch, to shut up and go away? Is he right to dismiss their concerns as somehow lacking in empathy or understanding that they, in a sense, are bigoted? Do you think people who say that there is no such thing as a human being who can change their biological sex, do you think those people are bigots? What do you think David Tennant is angered or upset by? 0345 6060 973. 8 minutes past 4. Helen Joyce is Director of Advocacy for Sex Matters and author of Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme, Helen. I wonder what you took from David Tennant's comments.
I agree with you that Kemi Badenoch's race is not relevant. What is relevant is that she was Minister for Women and Equalities. And that means that she is the minister who's responsible for overseeing anti-discrimination law, our main anti-discrimination law. The Equality Act talks about both gender reassignment and sex as being protected characteristics. So it's actually Kemi's job to stand up for women's rights, and she just does her job. So what I do think happened here was that David Tennant complained about a government minister doing her job, and I don't really think that he was right to do so. He's entitled to. That's what free speech means. She's entitled to speak back. What I will say is that David Tennant and his wife, and I would not say this if they hadn't first, they put a lot of stuff on Instagram about their primary age son who identifies as non-binary and who uses they, them pronouns. Mm-hmm. Again, I would not talk about someone's children in public, except that this is something that they do already. Mm-hmm. They've had hundreds of thousands of views on posts about this child. So David Tennant is somebody who, within his own family, is telling his children that it's possible to be neither male nor female. And Kemi Badenoch is standing up for biological reality and for the law in this country as it stands which doesn't recognise that it's possible to change sex really, or that it's possible to have neither sex. So he's angry because what she's saying is reality and it doesn't accord with what he's saying inside his own household. That's what I think is really going on here.
Although, is it possible for someone who is in a position of having a son or a daughter who is non-binary, who changes their pronouns, who wants to live as, whatever that means, the opposite sex, is it possible also to say to them, look, you aren't biologically the other sex, but if you want to wear a skirt or you want to drink a lot of beer or you want to do the things that are societally associated with the opposite gender, you go for it?
I mean, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? This child is a boy who has very long, beautiful blonde hair, and my own younger boy had lovely long hair when he was in primary school. And I mean, when I started talking about the issues that I wrote about in my book, he asked me what I was writing about, and I said, well, you know, some people think that if a boy has long hair and wants to wear a dress and so on, that means they're not really a boy. And he looked at me and said, that's completely mad. That's like saying I'm not a boy just because I like my hair long. And I think that's the really progressive position. I think you do you. I don't care if little boys want long hair. I don't care if they want to do ballet. Little girls should be able to do rugby. Doesn't change their sex. It's very hard for those of us who want to say that to other people because we get told we're bigots. We're not bigots. It's just the way it is. I actually think it's bigoted to think that a boy growing his hair long turns and somehow into a girl.
Why would that be bigoted, in your view?
Well, because it's quite regressive. It's saying that what women are is a bunch of stereotypes and what men are is a bunch of stereotypes. Actually, I think everybody should just do themselves. It doesn't change their sex, and that's fine. I don't see why we should insist that people fit into gendered boxes, pink and blue, and if they aren't good at fitting into those boxes, somehow they're some third category like non-binary, or, you know, a boy who likes pink and sparkles and princesses and paints his nails and so on is really a girl. That's like saying the stereotypes are real and the biology isn't. I mean, I just think that the biology is real, but do whatever you like with your stereotypes. That's progressive.
Do you therefore think someone like yourself, and you have been very outspoken on this issue for a long time, and the book is all about this, would you view yourself as an ally of trans people? Do you think you could persuasively convince a trans person who views you as almost like the enemy and bigoted that you are on their side?
That's a really great question. And first, can I say, by the way, that I have two sons and one is gay, so I'm certainly an ally of people who are same-sex attracted. I've been a big champion of my son on that subject. If somebody thinks that they have really changed sex and they think that anyone who doesn't agree with them is a bigot, then they're going to think I'm a bigot because I don't think that people can change sex. But I'm in the great majority of people in this country. I'm with common law on that subject. I'm with reality on that subject. And, you know, this isn't just me being mean. If I could wave a magic wand and I could help people to change sex, I mean, why would I not? But I can't. And it matters for women's rights, and it matters for not teaching children lies in school, that we actually recognise what is true. So that's why I keep saying it. It's not to be mean, it's because it's important.
So why do you think, and again, I'm probably putting words into his mouth here, but why do you think a David Tennant type, let's put it like that, would see you as a problem, an issue, to go away, to shut up?
That's, again, a great question, but let's not do it about David Tennant because I feel really icky talking about a particular person. Let's just say that lots of people in the media and in show business have children who identify as trans or non-binary. Lots and lots of them, and most of them don't talk about it publicly. And often when you see these very performative allyship statements, what I hear privately is this person has a trans child. So that person has had to make a decision whether they're going to go along with what their child tells them or not. And they may have been fed a lie, which is that if you don't go along with them, they might harm themselves. Now, fortunately, Hilary Cass, in her recent review of gender medicine, demonstrated that that is not true and that parents shouldn't be blackmailed like that. But if you decided to go along with what your child says, and if you've decided that you're going to affirm that identity in your home, people outside the home saying, well, that's all very well, fine, but I'm not going to play along. I'm not going to say that your son can come into women's spaces. We're causing a problem for them.
So the difficulty here, you call it performative allyship. So the performative bit is saying, yes, OK, you have changed you can become a different sex. You are now a woman, or you're identifying as a woman, therefore you are. That's the performative bit, is it?
No, I actually meant this thing of, you know, dressing in rainbows head to toe and posting all through Pride Month and you know, showing your own pronouns when you aren't trans-identifying or anything like that. That's the sort of performative bit. And the people who are most like that quite often have someone in their family who identifies as trans.
And I've heard you say before that your feeling is that the last people who will leave the argument that says you can change your sex biologically are the people who have already perhaps gone through that with their own child or themselves and have to justify it to themselves forever that they did the right thing or that they can do the thing that they say that they can.
Yeah, I mean, if your child identifies as non-binary or they just choose neopronouns or something, you know, they may just grow out of it. But anyone who has taken irrevocable steps for a child, so anyone who has put their child on puberty blockers or on cross-sex hormones, or that child has grown up to have surgery or so on, you know, it's very hard to think, well, maybe if I had acted differently, that wouldn't have happened, because those things aren't neutral. They're bad for your health, and they cause problems like sterility. So, yeah, I think those people have to justify what they did, and I have a lot of sympathy with them because they did it because they thought it was the right thing to do at the time. But unfortunately, people like me are collateral damage in that, because we have to be bad because they have to be good.
Let me put this to you finally from Lee, who's listening and WhatsApped. To say I am with the law, which is, I think, what you said, Helen, I am with the law, is a terrible argument. Helen Joyce could say the same about being gay in the 60s. Times change, she needs to keep up. What would you say? I
actually said three things. I said that I'm with majority public opinion, the law, and biological reality. I didn't just say I was with the law. I agree we didn't have same-sex marriage, and now we do, but it is just a fact. And Kemi Badenoch, which is where we started this conversation, was Minister for Women and Equalities. It matters what the law is because she was actually an officer of the law, in effect. She was overseeing the Equality Act as it is. If you want to change it, campaign to change it. That's fine.
Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Helen Joyce, Director of Advocacy for Sex Matters and author of Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality.